So I left you all, I believe, in the chart of accounts. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. I think we were done with that. Do you have any question on working in the chart of accounts? Everybody's good? All right, silence means move on. As they say, speak now. All right, so let's close the chart of accounts. You're going to go to the little X in the corner, not the top one. Remember, that's my 4 o'clock X, but the second X down. Click on that and close that. For the person I helped set up at lunchtime, your screen might look a little bit different. Let me just do a couple things that I didn't think to tell you. Remember, I went to View, and we switched the icon bar to the top. Then we went back to View, and we said we want one window, not multiple. I didn't think to tell you that at lunchtime. Hopefully that catches you up. All right, so the next thing we need to talk about is called items and services. When you create an estimate, a sales receipt, an invoice, everything you put on that you sell to a customer has to be classified as an item of service. So for me, my items and services is very similar to my income account, but let me see if I can find a better example. With Larry, we have store sales. So not Larry, with Corner Gardens, we have store sales, but we're going to sell candles. We're going to sell, we might sell jars of honey.
Excuse me, Connie.
Sure.
I registered, I installed my my QuickBooks on the desktop late, and I don't have the Larry's. I create the another one, but I don't have the sample for Larry's landscaping. How I can add it?
We're not using the Labyrinth book at all today. That is your homework that Kristen will assign you. Were you there this morning for the morning class?
Mm-hmm.
And did you create the Corner Garden file?
Yes, I create that one.
And that's where you should be right now, is in the Corner Gardens.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Yep. So when we look at, typically like in a store, you might sell candles, you might sell honey, you might sell, I don't know, different types of gifts. If you wanted to track those items in your sales, that's a sales item. When it comes to services, you might have landscaping, you might have other services you offer. So you have sales items that you might get reports of, how many of this did I sell? But then those sales and services items have to go into an income account. So you have to have a way to categorize them on an invoice, because think about it, you're going to categorize what that item or service was at the time you create the invoice, but you don't receive your money till later. So by creating the item service that's tied to an income account, it allows you on something like an invoice to use different services or items that might even go to different income accounts. And when you receive that money will eventually end up in the associated income account. When I started using QuickBooks, this is what confused me the most. And I know for me, I ended up with service accounts with the same name as the income account because I didn't understand the difference. Took me a long time, and so it's a tougher one for me to explain, but as we go through and I show you, I think it'll make a lot more sense to you. So, under chart of accounts is that, all right, do we call this gold, orange, yellow? I think everybody's been calling it gold. Is that a gold icon? All right, we're going to call it gold. Items and services, we're going to call that a gold icon. Click on the gold items and services, and you'll see you have nothing. Would it help if I showed you Larry first? That might help. Time out. Let me go to Larry that I left running. All right, so this one, his income accounts, he's got way too many, but look at all his income accounts, right? All right, so if I go to his items and services, same thing, he got a little carried away. These are his where he puts in, okay, was it plants and trees? Well, that's a non-inventory item, but when he receives the money, it goes into the income account called retail sales. Okay, he's got a pump. So it's actually known as a fountain pump. He calls it pump. It goes on the invoice as fountain pump. That is an inventory item that he stocks. And again, that'll go into the income account, which is kind of a long one, but he's basically got an income account that talks about fountains and garden lighting. So retail sales might be a better example. He's got an income account called retail sales. These are the things that would go into retail. So his list is, in my opinion, got a little bit too much, but it depends on what you do. These are his service accounts, but again, they're not all going to the same income account. Tree removal goes to the income account called services. Landscaping goes to the income account design services. So because you classify these things, or you put them on an invoice, it needs to have a classification of where you're going to track that income in the end. And I'm hoping that was helpful. Does that make sense? Any questions there? Okay. Let me come back to this one. So just like when we added a new income or expense account, remember there was a button in the bottom left and it said account, and when we clicked it, it said new, edit. Guess what? It's the same thing here, except for now it says item. So for our first one, click where it says item in the bottom left, and then go up and click on new. And you have an option here of, is it a new service? Is it an inventory part? And I'm going to talk about some of these others later, but then there's non-inventory. So 3 I want to focus on: service, inventory, and non. And what I try and do is do an example of each one, or a couple examples, so you get the feel for it.
Can you change those?
These are just the type of service that you're doing. You're going to put the description in yourself. So hold on your question, Diane, because I think I'm going to answer it. So these are the types of services you do. So we did new. We're going to go to service first. And then these are the boxes you fill in. So that's kind of like when we said bank account, income account, expense account. That's what type is it. This is where you put your details. All right, so first one we're going to do is an item name. And in that, just put in landscaping. So remember I said we'd come out, we'd do some planting for you, we'd do your landscaping. Did you find new, Brent? Bottom left where it says item, and then new. And then service. All right, and then
Pay attention and check your work.
somebody have a question, or did you forget to mute?
No,
Can you start over again, please? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so we have item number, landscaping. The QuickBooks Pro or Pro Plus does not have this unit of measure. I'm in the Premier version that QuickBooks gave me for educational purposes. If once you're in the Pro, you won't have that. So my remote people are probably not seeing that button. That goes with the next level of QuickBooks called Premier, where you can have units of measure. Is it as in feet versus cubic inches, that type of thing. Nobody ever really uses it, to be honest with you, but that's one difference I found with Premier versus Pro. All right, then down here, so this is the way we're going to categorize the description. This is what the customer is going to see. So that's where we want to be more specific. Let's call this landscaping services. I don't know about you guys, but I'm having trouble seeing that. Hit tab. And on the rate, you could leave it at 0. And whenever you put it on an estimate, an invoice, or sales receipt, you could type it in then. But if it's kind of like a normal set rate, it makes sense to do it here because they'll fill it in for you. You can always change it if you need to. So if we were going to do landscaping, say we're a company and we did landscaping, how much do you think we should charge an hour? Anybody have an opinion? Are we cheap or not? You guys are quiet.
$20.
Oh, no, we're worth more than 20.
45.
Diane says 50. If I have to go do landscaping in your backyard, that's manual labor. I think we should get 50. So let's put, I think 50 sounds good. Let's go with 50.
Florida wages are really low.
Oh, well, I feel like in my pretend world, we should get plenty of money.
I agree with you.
Yeah, in my pretend world, we leave our problems at the door and money's no problem here. All right, so let's go with 50. And then you have to choose an income account because when you put this on the invoice and you get paid, it needs to know where to track that. So if you hit this drop down on the income account, that's where you see at the very top the 3 income accounts we set up. And this one you could probably guess it's going to go in our income account called landscaping services.
I don't know how I did that.
Time out. Hang on.
What'd you do? I don't know, but I never got to go put in landscaping services.
Go to item. and choose new. And then click on service, which is green. Oh, yeah, that worked. And then click on the item name box. Type in landscaping. No, you're in the right one.
Okay.
See how I,
Okay, gotcha.
and then in the description, put in landscaping services. I can't take it, I can't see. I gotta, I'll probably end up going back and forth, guys, but I can't take it that small. It's hard for me to see. I'll deal with the stuff that's off the screen. Oh, so much better. Look at that. I can actually see it now. All right. And then Dee, did you go over and put $50 an hour in there?
Okay. Yep.
That video finally finished. All right, and then under account, hit the drop down and choose landscaping services. And then click OK. And that is your first service that we can put on an invoice. Now, to add another one, because I wanted to do one of each, I could go back to item and choose new, but now that we have something here, how about just right click and choose new there like we did in the chart of accounts. What I like is when you learn one piece of QuickBooks, it really helps you with the other areas. Click on new. This one is going to be a non-inventory part. So choose non-inventory from that drop down. And this is going to be pick your own strawberries, I'll pick your own apples. So item name, put in PYO apples. And then in the description box, not everybody knows what PYO stands for. And remember, that's what the customer is going to see. Spell out pick your own apples. Did anybody pick apples this year and figure out how much they were a pound?
Me too.
Well, my problem is I go over and I just, because the family owns the orchard, I don't know what they get per pound.
What did Colin and
No, I don't know, they bought them by the peck.
Okay, well, hit tab, we just gotta make up a price. How about $1.29? I have no idea if that's accurate. Someday I'll figure it out. And then on your account name, we have to tell it where does that money go. So hit the drop down under account. And we have 3 income accounts. Which one do you think it is? Kind of obvious, it's the PYO income, right? So we did pick your own apples, $1.29, PYO income. Now I could click OK, but anybody notice it says next? If you want to do another one very similar, still non-inventory, if you click next, it saves that and goes to the next one. It remembered the non-inventory part, it remembered the income account, and all we have to do is fill in the details. So on this one, item name is going to be PYO strawberries that they do in June. Not this time of year, but in June. Florida might get them this time of year, but we don't. And then in the description box, spell out pick your own strawberries. These could be the same, but I'm making them different so you can see the difference eventually between the item name and the description. And what do we pay for those? Oh, let's go with $1.49 because I don't really know. And then go ahead and click OK when you're done with that. And if you look, we now have the landscaping, the PYO apples, and the PYO strawberries. So this part is time consuming to set up.
But once it is, it's done.
And that's the thing, the setup is the worst part. After that, I spend, to run my business, to do payroll for my 2 employees, and everything that goes in and out of my business, I spend probably between a half hour and an hour a week to run everything for the business. So, I mean, I don't have a huge volume, but still,
Right.
it doesn't take me that long. The payroll takes me 10 minutes at the most. So, all right. What takes me the longest is sending people their receipts. That's the longest. All right, so we have a service, we have a non-inventory, we need to do an inventory. Right click on anything in the list, go to new, And let's do an inventory part. Notice there's a lot more boxes to fill in when you have an inventory part. Item name is going to be in all caps, the word candles. What I'm going to do is show you sub-items here, but I'm going to set up a header account that everything's going to fall under.
Did you make that all caps purposely?
I am going to do that on purpose. I'd like it all caps, and you'll see why in a few minutes. In the description box, I want candles in all caps, and then I want you to put do not use. So you'll see what I'm up to in just a minute. Actually, can I change that? Backspace out, do not use. Call this header account only, and you can abbreviate the word. Just header account's good. Sorry, changed my mind. So this is going to be the heading that they don't actually put anything in, but I needed that to have all the sub items under it of the different types of candles. Hit tab. It should also copy that over here into the sale box, which is fine. We're not going to have a cost. We're not going to have anything here, but we cannot, even though nobody's supposed to use this account, we can't create an account without an income account. So come down here where it says income, hit the drop down and choose store sales. So I skipped all the prices. Now again, I want to do another one, so I'm just going to say next. So when you do next, oh, it didn't like the fact I abbreviated account. This has a spell check built in. You can fix that if you want, or you can ignore it.
What happens if you tab from income account down to asset account? And now it's-
Oh, I can't see the asset account. I forgot it was there. The asset account we don't have to do anything with right now.
But when I tabbed it, put inventory asset.
That's fine because that's where it would be tracked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I forgot. I'm sorry about that, guys. When I made my screen bigger, I forgot there's a line down there I wasn't seeing. I'll make it so I can see it in just a second, and it's fine the way it is.
So after you do an income account, store sales, what do I do? I'm sorry.
Next, over by the okay. And let me, if I hide my icon bar, I think I can see. Yeah, I can barely see them, but they're down there. What else can I hide? Hold on. That should do it. Aha, I made it so it shows. I had to hide a bunch of stuff on my screen, but I did. Okay, so because you said next, it knows it's an inventory part. It also knows down here it's going to be store sales, but now we have to create what's our next item. Now, if this was the real world, I look at the display of Yankee candles over at my brother's apple orchard in his store, and he has different sizes. He has the big 4-ounce jar, he has the 8-ounce jar, and then he has the little votives, the little individual candles. But not only do they have different sizes, then they have lavender scent, honeysuckle scent, I don't know, vanilla, Christmas cookie, whatever. They, in a real world, might want to keep track of which ones they're selling the most of and which ones they need to reorder. So in an actual store, they use point of sale software, which is extremely expensive in a real store. I had a customer that had a health food store. I helped her look into it, and QuickBooks has a point of sale system. To have 2 terminals and the back office to run it was just over $10,000. So, but obviously if you were a large store, it's going to be well worth the time. So sometimes you're not big enough to have point of sale software, but you might want to have a few items. In the real world, we would have under the 4-ounce candle, all the different scents. Under the 8-ounce, all the different scents. We're going to cut to the chase and just do like 1 or 2 here. But I like to tell people in the real world, you'd want to track all that. You want to know what you're selling without having to go look on the shelf. All right, so we're going to call this, how about 8 OZ is short for candle. Short for ounce, sorry. 8, let me get my tongue untied. 8-ounce candle, phew, that was hard to say. And I put OZ. I want that to be a sub of our candle category because I might have a category for jelly, right? How many flavors of jelly would we have? How many different sizes? So do you see why I created the header account? Put a check mark on sub item of, And once you do, there's a drop down here, and you'll see that candle category that we created. So all candles will be a sub of that. In the description on the left, this is what the customer, nope, this is what we see for our description. On the right is what they see when we actually sell it. So this is the purchase information. This is the sales information. It can be one and the same. On the description on purchase, put in 8 OZ candle again, just so you can see the difference. When you hit tab, you'll notice it fills it in over on this side. I'm going to change that in a second, but in the meantime, it's on the cost. So those big 8-ounce candles are super expensive. I want to say they're around $25, and our cost might be $12.50. So that's our cost on the left. We're tracking it in our cost of goods sold account. If we had a preferred vendor, we could specify that. We do not. On the other side, the sales information is what the customer's going to see. We want them to know why those candles are so expensive. It's because they're a Yankee candle. Click in front of the sea of candle in the box on the right and add the word Yankee in front of it. So they see Yankee candle, we just put 8-ounce candle. Hit tab, and we're going to sell that for $24.95. It's going to be in the store sales income account. And then there is the inventory information across the bottom. When you purchase items for inventory, so let's talk about why do you need to track inventory versus non-inventory. Typical store that's going to have inventory, they invest a lot of money and they pay for that inventory. So that becomes an inventory asset because you've paid for it and you still own those items. Once you sell it, then it becomes income. So it's no longer an asset at that point. So what they're saying here is if this is inventory, we need to track what you've purchased temporarily in that asset account. They then want to know, well, is there a reorder point, a minimum, a maximum? Do we already have any the day we set this up that we already had some on hand? And if so, if I said I had 10 of these, it would take my cost and multiply times 10, and that's what it would add to my inventory asset account. It would also increase my equity account. Remember the owner's equity? What do they call that? Not owners. Striking a blank. What was that equity account? Anyway, remember the equity account that the opening balance equity. Sorry, hit a blank there. The opening balance equity account, it would also add to that. So for today, we're going to say, no, we don't have any the day we created this. We're going to have to purchase some to stock that inventory. So the purpose of inventory is you need to track the money you've invested in an inventory asset account until it's sold. You also need to tell you when something needs to be reordered, and you want to keep track of it. Non-inventory is something you sell, but you purchase it strictly for reselling it. You don't keep it on hand for any length of time. Therefore, you don't need to track the value of what you purchased. So for me, the textbooks I buy, there's a textbook that students can get from a company called Labyrinth. I haven't talked with this group, but Florida knows about it. And it's these books right here. If I purchase a book from Labyrinth, which is a self-study guide that students can use at home, if I purchase that, I don't stock these. I don't have a whole bookshelf and invest a lot of money in keeping these on hand. So I will purchase it specifically to resell to the student. That's a non-inventory. Our example, we're going to do a fish pond. So you're going to ask us to build you a fish pond at your house. We're not going to stock fish pond kits. We're going to buy them for that specific job. So hopefully that explains the difference between an inventory and a non-inventory.
So when you purchase that, QuickBooks posts it to an expense account immediately.
Yes. So what happens is I purchase it, and then it goes into actually my cost of goods sold account.
Immediately.
Yes.
Rather than into an
Into
asset
it, right.
account and then into
That's right.
cost of goods sold.
Because if it's inventory, it doesn't see the income till I say I've sold it by putting it on an invoice or a sales receipt.
So if your inventory is de minimis, there's no reason. to
And
sell
that, like for what you guys are doing at the campground,
There's no
I would
way
do
that.
I would do non-inventory. Yeah, I would just do the
For
non-inventory.
everything.
And I would even generalize, it goes
Oh, yeah.
back to, for the ones that remote, at their campground, they have a small store and they sell, they sell kids' toys, they sell ice cream. You've got candy, marshmallows, things a typical person camping might have forgotten and they don't want to go to the store.
Yeah, but you
Yeah.
just generalize the categories and put them into the.
Right, you might do, kid stuff or ice cream, you might have a half dozen entries here for the actual item name, just so you could track how much do we sell in kids' toys. But you don't care which toy it was they bought.
Right.
So that's where again, it goes back to IRS doesn't care. They only know the total of what you sold and what you brought in, but what do you need to see in reports? Make sense? Hopefully? Okay. I love the campground example because everybody knows what happens at a campground. So you guys were a good example today. All right. So we're not going to put a reorder point in a minimum maximum. I think we should. What's the minimum we'd want to keep on hand of the 8-ounce candles? Again, I'm going to assume we're a really small store. Let's say if we get down to 10, we'd want to have it tell us the time to reorder. And what would be the maximum? We probably wouldn't have more than 40 at a time. So if we order, we'd want to bring it up to 40. So 10 on the minimum, 40 on the maximum. And I want to say some of the other versions, those numbers are different, so don't panic if your screen is slightly different. All right, then we need to do another one. So do next, up there, okay. It remembers inventory. This one will be the 8-ounce candle, so 8 OZ candle. Oh, thank you, 4-ounce, sorry. 4-ounce candle, somebody's paying. That was a test, Diane, to see who would catch me. 4-ounce candle, sub-item of, and make sure you choose the candle category. So you'll see the list we've already started. Go to the candle category. Again, if there was like a manufacturer part number, you'll see that's what that's for. Description on purchase is going to be 4 OZ candle. Actually, let's go with Yankee candle because that way we won't have to fix it on the other side. 4 OZ Yankee candle. Those, I'm going to say they're probably around $18 or $20. So let's say our cost is $9.95. On the sale price, tab until you get to the sale price, which is a couple tabs. On the other side where it says sales price, let's say we're going to sell it for $19.95. It remembers it's going to track it in the income account store sales. Minimum we want to have is going to be 20. Maximum, let's go with 50. And for now, that's all I want to add. I have another one that we're going to add as I call on the fly because you don't always think of everything in the beginning. So go ahead and click OK. And you should see our categories. You see candles with 2 sizes under there. So if we sold jars of jelly, I would put that in there. I would decide, do I want to see the different, flavors, etc. Any questions on setting up an item or a service so far? Okay, there was one other thing that I want to show you in there that a lot of people get confused on. I'm going to right click and go to new, which you can just watch if you want. So there was service, there was inventory. Notice I skipped inventory assembly. We did non-inventory, there's other. Other might be something like if there was shipping involved. You might have to have a category for shipping. So you might create an actual service item that says shipping to it. So anything else you'd have to add to that invoice. Subtotal is if you use it, if you have a tax, you're going to have the subtotal for what have they bought so far. Then you're going to have the subtotal to figure out the tax, where it would then give you the grand total on the invoice. Grouping and inventory assembly are similar. Inventory assembly is, I look at the company next door to us that they actually build fiber optic cables and they build things for specific types of machinery and parts that are being made. So they'll get an order that they have to have, X number of these cables at such and such a length. An inventory assembly means you've got items you purchase in your inventory. And once you've put all the items in inventory, you're going to use those items to build an assembled part. So it's quicker if you build the assembly, if there's something that always takes the same parts, You have to itemize to get the breakdown, but then the inventory assembly allows you to put it on the invoice as one item, and it will deduct all the pieces of your inventory that it uses to go into that. It's the same idea as group. In some of the prior versions, we didn't have inventory assembly, all we had was group. The example I use there. So let's say at my brother's apple orchard, my sister-in-law goes out and buys a bunch of baskets, and she decides to make some gift baskets. And let's say they really had everything in inventory. She might put a candle in that basket. Okay, she just took that out of the inventory. She might put a jar of jelly. She might put a jar of honey. So she creates a gift basket that's pulling items from inventory. She could then call that small gift basket, holiday basket, whatever. She could then, if you designate the group, she could then enter it on the invoice as one item, but it would know to deduct one honey, one jelly, one candle, etc. And that's what the grouping's for. So, no questions there? Okay. All right, I think we're done with items and services, and we can finally start selling something. So go to the end of the title bar that says item list, hit the X to close that. Keep in mind, if you ever had to go back, it's over here in items and services.
What was that?
The gold icon right here.
No, how to get it out of there?
Oh, just hit the X at the end of the little title bar on the right. So not the 4 o'clock X, but the second one.
Got it.
So items and services were mentioned on page 12. 13 was your inventory, and there's even a section on when to use inventory and when not to use inventory. All right. The last thing on the Module 1 morning book was purchasing new items for the inventory. I'm going to skip that for a minute, and we're going to go to the Module 2 book. So I will go back and we'll order some candles a little bit later, but I'm going to forget about it for now. So the first thing you have when you're dealing with customers, so this afternoon is about customers and receivables. Okay, so at some point you have to put all your customers in there. Well, if it's your off season and a slow time of year, that might be a good time to sit down and put all your customers in ahead of time so that when you get busy, it'll be a matter of just choose a customer, address is there, everything's there. For me, that isn't the case. For me, I add customers as I do business with them. So you show up as a new student, I go to do a customer invoice or sales receipt. I'm going to add you, as I say, on the fly. I'm just going to go in, I'm going to create the invoice, I'm going to give it your name, and it's going to say, oh, they're not in your list. Would you like to add them now? So it's easy to add new ones. If you don't want to take the time to add everybody in, then you can skip it. So I want to show you both. I think I want to start with putting you in as a new customer. Like everything else, there's about 4 ways to do this. First of all, the icon bar has a customer button. Don't bother clicking these. I'm just going to point out somewhere up here you should see a customer button. I think mine's hiding, yep. But up there in the what I'll call the charcoal gray, you should see customers. That's one way, okay? You'll also see the menu bar, which is the light gray. There's customers, and there's the customer center there. Okay, if that's not enough, the one I like is this one right here. And there's a shortcut key too that I never remember. I like clicking the link right in the customer window. So put your pointer on where it says customer, click, and that opens you into a new customer screen. And I think you should be the new customer for today. So in the upper left, notice we have no customers yet. In the upper left, it says new customer and job. Click on that button. And then it has a drop down. Is this a job for an existing customer or is it new? Click on new customer. And that brings you in where you start putting people in here. Okay, now this is important in the customer name box. This customer name and then this company name with first and last name. If your customers are individuals, not businesses, what you should do in the customer name box is put their last name, comma, first name. Because you can't sort your customer name list. People come back and say, how do I sort my customer list? You can't. It's how you put it in this box here. So for me, you would put Hislop, Connie, and Doug, right? But if it's a business, that's different. The business name would be the same. But if you put in Connie Hislop, sorry, she's going to fall into C for Connie. So it's going to get confusing to find people. And And like I said, people have asked me how to sort, and you can't. They sort automatically.
Now, you put 2 names after that comma.
Totally up to you. It's how you want to see them in your list. How do you want to
Since
locate
you're
them?
seasonal.
Yeah, but sometimes you have one person make the reservation, the next time it's the next one.
Right, and so it's up, this is just, when you look at your list of customers, they're gonna be alphabetical, and it's gonna go by what you put in that box.
What else is that field used for? Does it
Um,
populate anything?
No. It basically is just how you locate that customer quickly.
But
I
then
mean-
you have to choose it on the full name, you have to choose one name.
No, you could put 2. You could put Connie and Doug
On the, down in that other field,
in this one here. Oh, yeah, you can
Yeah.
put 2 names in there. So this is, all this is when they fall alphabetically, how are you going to find them?
And that's fine. I mean, a lot of times I get people, like he said, with 2 names making that reservation.
Right.
But what I usually do is put the name, if there is a second name, whoever made the payment, that's
Right.
whose name it goes in.
And if you ended up with, you put in, so you got 2 different people, say it's a significant other situation. So he calls, makes the reservation, you put him in, he comes and does the camping this time, and then next time she calls and she
Yep.
gives you her name.
Yep.
And you don't realize he's already in there, so
Yep.
you put it under her name. Now you got 2 customers. Remember, you can merge them if you ever figure that out. So if you had to, you can merge.
Okay.
And it wouldn't hurt to have them both in there, to be honest with you. What harm is that gonna do? You can have them both in there, because that way when they call next time, you're not gonna have to worry about which name. They
you
would
could
just,
always put in parentheses or something, the other one behind it.
yes, you could. Yep. So the first box is, how do we wanna see you in the list? So let's do your last name, comma, your first name. If you wanna put in a spouse or whatever, that's fine. You can put in and Joe Schmo, I don't care. Just remember that's how you locate them in the list. Then we don't have a company name, but we have a first name. Now, technically, yeah, you could do the Mr. and the Ms. It won't hurt anything to skip it. In the first name box, put your first name. I'm not gonna do the middle initial, so I'm gonna tab past that to the last name and put in the last name. Just making sure nobody's waiting to get in. Making sure we didn't have any latecomers. Again, if you have things like a job title, if it's a business, fine. If you have their phone number. If you plan to email them receipts, you want to get their email. And that's how I send all my receipts, is I send them through email. So I make sure when I put somebody in that I put their email here. And I'll show you how to email receipts a little bit later. All right, then you want to have their, so you fill in whatever is appropriate. Then down here, more importantly, is you need their address. So in the invoice bill to box, click at the end of your name, hit enter, and put in your home address. And yes, they named the road after us. Only because we've been there for 40 years. Now, we're not quite done yet. I'm just hiding my icon bar again so I can see the bottom. Notice you've got some other tabs here. This is just the address info. Over here on the left, click on payment settings. Do you assign your customers an account number? Nope. Do you assign them a credit limit? Nope. Do you have different price levels if they do a certain amount of business with you? Nope. So in other words, there's lots of boxes you may never use. Payment terms, though, if it's going to be an invoice, you might want to put in how long do you give them. So hit the drop down on payment terms, and I would say net 30. For those that are non-accounting people, I have to assume people don't always know these things. When it says 2% 10 net 30, that means that if they pay it in 10 days, they get to take a 2% discount. Otherwise, they'll owe the full amount in 30 days. So if you weren't familiar with that term, if you do things on consignment, IRS wants you to track that.
Sorry, how'd you get there?
Are you on the new customer screen? So we were in address info. And then I went to the tab over here that says payment settings.
Oh, payment settings. Okay, got it.
Yeah. And then we were looking at the payment terms.
All right.
So IRS, if you do a trade of services, they want you to keep track of that. Believe it or not, not everybody does, but you're supposed to. If somebody's invoice is due when they get it, you can do due on receipt. For us, let's do net 30. Then you have, if you want to specify the preferred method for delivering their invoice, email versus putting it in the mail. You don't have to specify that, that's a preference. And then preferred payment method, is there a specific way they pay? Again, I don't usually fill these in. I take every one as it comes. I don't worry about that. Credit card information. Notice they want the credit card number, the expiration date, the name as it appears on the card, the address. The only thing they don't ask you for is the security code. I want to assure all of my customers, if you've ever given me your credit card, I do not enter it in QuickBooks. I don't believe in it. I just think it's putting somebody's information at risk if anything happens. I have paper copies in a locked cabinet in my office, which is also locked when I'm not here. I would much rather do it that way. So they offer that, but I'm not a fan. Part of it is that QuickBooks allows you to invoice and accept payments through them. It's a service. You pay for that service. I use a company that their rates are better than QuickBooks rates. So that's why I don't use that. No questions there? If there was sales tax, notice you have one for sales tax. You have additional info. Take a look at additional info. It's kind of interesting. You have customer type or sales rep. So if it was a company where you're tracking who is their sales rep, you would go in here. You have to set up your sales reps and what are their names, but you can say, yes, their sales rep goes with this customer. Customer type, that is an interesting one. Their list, when I look at that, is, was it from an advertisement, referral, retail, or wholesale? I use that as business versus individual. Is it one of my business customers or is it an individual? The reason you would notice the add new, you can set up your own categories. The reason you set these up is there is a feature in QuickBooks to print mailing labels. And there's even a whole mail merge feature that interacts with Microsoft Word. So let's say I want to send a mailing and I want to target my business customers. And maybe I do a different mailing for the individuals. When we do the mailing labels, if we have put every customer in a specific customer type, we can filter out the ones we want. So you could be seasonal versus transients, would be a good recommendation. If you don't use it, it's no big deal. Now, the other one that's kind of interesting is over here you have a way to make custom fields. And you might say, well, what would I make for a custom field? Let's say somebody works for you as a subcontractor, or you have the same thing in vendor screens too. And they have to produce their workman's comp paperwork once a year. Under the vendor screen, you have the same type of thing. And you could put in what's their annual anniversary date that you need to ask them for updated information. It could be, is there a certification involved? So maybe somebody's certified and they have to produce their certification that has to be renewed. Like electricians have to be certified every few years. When you add defined field, you'll see if you click on that, you decide what's it going to be. Should that new field show up on your customer screen, your vendor screen, and or your employee screen? So when you create a custom field, it's available to all of these, and it's done exactly the same way. If I, for customers, wanted to have a field of their birthday, maybe I get their birthday from them and I want to keep track because I want to send them a little birthday card. I had a car salesman years ago that I helped him set up some things, and he liked sending out a little postcard the month of your birthday. He'd send out a happy birthday, because let's face it, if you take your car in to get inspected and it needs a lot of work, you think about a new car, you just got a birthday card from this guy. You're like, oh yeah, I forgot about him. So anything like that, you could even at the campground have, preferred site. I don't know, anything that you'd want to track that you'd like to have a field for. You might say, well, what good does that do me? When you do reports, and in our last number 6 class, we do reports, I show how to create reports with custom fields and how you could have a phone list of all your customers with their phone number, their email, and whatever you label this custom field, which is kind of nice. And you can have as many as you want as far as but there's a limit on everything. The limit's out so far, I don't think you're gonna find it. So lots of good uses for that. All right, I'm not gonna do anything there, so if you're waiting with me, just hit cancel. Maybe we'll do one at a later time. And then job info, you probably won't use too often, but say a contractor goes out and he quotes a job to put a new roof on their house. And then he gets halfway through that job, they're so happy that they're like, oh, would you give us a price on doing a deck? He might track different jobs for that one customer. And that's where the job info goes, is you can actually track it by job. I don't bother tracking things by job, I just do it by the customer, but some people might have a need for that. In the end, go back to address info, which is where we started. Any question here on any of the fields for setting up a new customer? I skipped a few, but I think they're self-explanatory. All right, click on OK. And we have a customer. At any time, if you needed to change information for a customer, you come into the customer center where we are now. If you double click, it takes you right back. So point to your name and double click and you'll see that takes you back where we were. So if somebody gives you a different address or suddenly you got their email and you didn't have it before, you know, oh, you just got a hold of their phone number, you can go in and change these. And on these phone number fields, I don't know if you noticed there's drop downs. So you could say, well, instead of a work number, maybe there's a mobile or cell number. So notice you can actually do others there too. All right, go ahead and do an OK on that, but that's how you get back to edit later. Let's close. Oh,
I don't know what I did, but.
okay.
This is the same as our recent custom job.
Oh, you tried to add a new one. Just say
Oh,
OK.
okay.
And
Okay.
all right. There was one other thing too that I can show you on the customer screen. Over in here will be a list of transactions for that customer eventually. But you see these tabs? There's transactions, contact info. If you have a to-do list for that customer, notes. You can go to notes and you can add a note. If you go to manage, there's an add there. You can add a note for things you want to keep track of for that customer. So for example, let's say at the campground, somebody rents a cottage and you've told them that's price is based on 4 people and they show up with 8 people and they're packing them in there. Make a note for next year. Make a note. This family tends to show up with the, you know, trying to overfill the poor cottage. They're stacking them instead of, but that, you know, that's the kind of thing you can put in any notes you want about that customer. All right, now we can close that. So you can go to the X in the upper right to close the center. I have to go to the left because I can't see the X. You can do that also what I'm doing if you want, but over on the left there's a little arrow with a close. All right, so now we have a customer. You've asked us to come out and give you an estimate to build a fish pond. You'd like a really nice fish pond and you're gonna get some of those beautiful orange koi fish. So we're like, sure, we can do that. So let's do an estimate and see the whole process of what happens. Click on the estimate icon. Start typing your last name and you should see it pops right in because you're already in the list. You could hit the drop down if you didn't know where they were or how they were listed. Hit tab. It should have filled in today's date, your address, but it comes up with estimate number 1. On a new install of QuickBooks, everything you do starts with number 1. The first check you write is check number 1. The first invoice, number 1. The first estimate, number 1. The first purchase order. So when you first start using it, you don't want to leave number 1 because you don't want them to think they're the first. I usually pick a random number and then from there it'll automatically go to the next one. So on estimates, let's go with 300. The next one will automatically do 301, but you want to have like a starting point. Then come down here under the heading item and click in that empty box. When you click, a drop-down arrow shows up. You could have also tabbed until you got there. Once you get there, hit the drop-down on item. The customer does not see what's in the item column. They only see the description. The item column is for your benefit to choose what was the name of your item or service. So think of it like people that have part numbers. Sometimes they're choosing a part number, but they want the customer to see the full description. So let's say, oh, you want a fish pond. Was that in our list? We never put a fish pond in, did we? All right, so click the arrow and hide that list because it's not there. Type in fish pond. And what happens if you try and put something in there that's not already there? Do I have to close the screen, go back to my items and services and set it up? The answer is no. I call this adding on the fly. Hit tab to go to the next box and it will say, wait a minute. You don't have a fish pond in your list of products and services. And the question is, would you like to add it now? Yes, I would. Click on yes. It takes you to the item and service screen that we were working with earlier. We create the new item, and when we're done, it'll take us back and put it onto the estimate. So this is going to be a non-inventory part. So click on non-inventory. Our description fish pond is good, but we need to put a better description for the customer. So in the description box, let's say we're going to give you 1,000-gallon oval fish pond. In other words, put in a good description. Hit tab, and that's where we have to figure out what would we sell this to them for. If we're putting in the little plastic tub, we're going to obviously include the pump, the filter, we're going to fill it with water. In other words, we'll tell them later what's included. What's our selling price? 1,000-gallon isn't actually that big. Let's go with $1,200. And then we have to tie it to an income account. Where it says account down here, hit the drop down. And out of our 3 income accounts, which one do you think we should use? I would put it under landscaping. So let's do landscaping services. Click OK. So you just created that in your items and services, so the next person, it'll already be there. And in the meantime, it actually put it on this one. Hit tab and it will move you over to quantity. They only need 1 of those. If this was something where there was more than 1, it would calculate for you. Hit tab until, keep hitting tab till you're on the next row. And then you also ordered some, let's say we sell trees and shrubs, and you ordered some trees and shrubs from us. So how about we put in trees, just put trees. And hit tab and it says, oh, those aren't in your list either. Okay, fine, hit yes. And that's going to be a non-inventory because a plant is hard to measure because you grow that plant, you don't buy the plants, we're growing our own. Let's do non-inventory. And description, put in ornamental trees. You're going to get what we pick, we're not going to let you choose. So we're just going to put in a bunch of ornamental trees. And they're going to have an average price of $49 because trees aren't cheap. And we have to tie it to an income account. I would probably still do landscaping. So ornamental trees, $49 each, landscaping. What'd you do now? Oh, hit escape. You hit enter it. I thought you wanted like a little adding machine to add it up. Yep, and then 49 ornamental landscaping services. All set, click OK. Then we have to decide, we're going to choose a nice variety for you, but we have to figure out how many would you want around this pond. So hit tab. It's not that big a pond. How about 6? Tab. And notice you now have a total at the bottom of what this estimate's going to be for. That's probably enough for now. Go ahead and hit save. Up at the top, you have an icon bar up here. Click on the blue save. And at the bottom, you've got a blue button that says what? Save and close or save and new? Which one's blue? Go ahead and do save and close. And that brings you back where your estimate, you're thinking about it, you're gonna let us know, okay? So we emailed that over to you. You're gonna give that some thought.
How do I go and look at that now if I want?
You click back on estimate. This is the easiest way. Brent asked, because I know the others can't hear, he asked, how do I get back to that if I want to look at it? You click on the estimate icon, and up here on this icon bar, there's a back arrow. Hit the blue arrow, and there it is.
Otherwise, we could search by customer name.
You can, yes. If you go to the customer center, where we had your name, and eventually we'll have more names, you'll see all your transactions. I would go there, I would find what the one that says estimate, and I would double click on it. So go ahead and save and close that again, and I'll show you what I mean on the other one. If I went back to our customer center, you now have a transaction. See right here? You could also find it here and then double click, and it would bring you to the same place. So whichever way, I tend to open it up and do the back arrow, because chances are it's one of the last ones I did. So I find that quicker, but either way will work just fine. Okay, close that, save and close. And because I opened the customer center, if you did the same, hit the X in the corner, or you can go to the arrow on the left and close that too. So back to our navigation window. So the first page in the Module 2 book was how we got to the customer center, and kind of a little screen capture of that whole screen. I did make a note on the bottom of that first page to control the sort order of individuals, enter it as last name, first name. Page 2 was how to go back and edit, which basically means go to the customer center, double click. Income tracker, there's nothing there right now to look at. I will show you that a little bit later, maybe back in Larry. Well, while I'm at it, let me show you now just so we don't forget about it. I'll take you back to Larry that I left running here. Income tracker is if I'm on a customer screen. So I'm on the customer window. So I'm back into customers. And I have the income tracker there. Let's see, where is it? Give me a minute because I don't use it enough. All right, stumbling, hold on, where did it go? Oh, right there, sorry. So I'm in the customer center, I go to income tracker. Once you have enough in here, it's going to show you a lot of good information. I have 2 outstanding estimates. I have 34 open invoices, 4 or 6 that are overdue. 0 that are paid in the last 30 days. So this is kind of nice. It's almost like, it's not really a report. So this isn't one you would print. This is more just that quick, what have I got going on with my customers? So that's a nice, quick, easy way of getting that. Reports will give you the same type of thing, but this one's kind of different than reports because it gives you different information. More than one way to look at everything. And I mentioned that on the bottom of page 2, and I was afraid I'd forget later. Right now, it's not going to show us anything because we've had no income yet, but at least you saw what it looks like if I don't think of it in the report class. Estimates was on page 3, where we just did create an estimate. I did mention on 3, if we hadn't answered yes to the estimate feature during the interview, you would go to edit preferences and you could turn that on if it's an afterthought. So that was page 3. Okay, so let's go to page 5. I'm going to skip 4 for just a minute. You're still thinking about my estimate, so we're not going to worry about that yet. Somebody else comes in, and we need to create an invoice for them. So that's where we're going to go to create invoice. And we have a new customer. Her name is Janet Green. So type in Janet and then Green. And yes, I did do first name, then last name. I'll show you why after. Hit tab, and it says she's not in your list. If you do the quick add, then it skips the address field, all the other fields. So if you just wanted to do a quick one, be done with it, you're going to print it and hand it to them and you'll fill in the blanks later, you can do that, but you wouldn't do that so much on an invoice as you might with a sales receipt. All right, so we should probably go to setup. Go to setup, and this is what I call adding on the fly. When I typed Janet Green, it went up there with her first name first, but in the invoice box, it came out the right way. So that's where I could click in front of the G of Green, backspace out Janet, go to the end, put a comma, space, and add her. So it didn't matter whether I did Green Janet, I would have had to fix this one. You see what I mean? It doesn't matter which way I do it, I got to fix one of them because I don't want to mail it to them as Green Janet. Then first name, I would put that in, so do Janet there. Tab over the last name, Green. Again, we're not going to have any information on her other than her address. So go to Janet Green, click at the end in the invoice to address box, hit enter. Let's put her at P.O. Box 567. We'll put her in Belmont, New Hampshire, 03220. I am not going to do any other settings. And remember the payment settings when we set you up, we had to give you net 30? If we don't change that, it's not going to give everybody 30 days. It's going to give them 10. And it's because under edit preferences, there's a place to say what is the default setting for when invoices are due. So I'm not going to do that because I want you to see what happens if you forget, because you will forget. Click OK. We don't want it to be invoice number 1, so let's do invoice number, we'll start with 400 on this one. This one, you've got a lot of boxes to fill in here. On a day-to-day, do you really need PO number, term, sales rep, ship, via, FOB? No. This has to do with invoice forms can be customized. They have standard ones built into QuickBooks, and the one they gave us is a really ugly one. I'm going to go with some of the other built-in ones, show you the difference for now. Our last class, because I only have so much time today, I don't get into creating custom invoices today. Our module 6, when we do the report part of it, I show how to add things like your logo, customize the appearance of it with the columns, the different fields you want to see. But that's like a half-hour topic, and the first day I like to get more done than just that. So that's my reason for holding off. But in the meantime, this is ugly. Look at what this would look like when I go to print preview. Is that the ugliest invoice you ever saw? That is just way too busy, and you're not going to fill in half those boxes. This is why I say you do want to look at some of the others and customize. Okay, so let's start with what they gave us. In this blue area here, it says template, and right now you're on the Intuit product invoice. Click the drop-down arrow. Anything that says Intuit, they're built in. Try the Intuit professional invoice. That went the other way, you have a lot less. Again, I'll show you in the print preview on each one. This is very simple. 2 columns, nothing up at the top, no due date. That one's almost too simple. And then there's my OCD in me that wouldn't like that not lining up. That's the kind of stuff we figure out later. All right, so that went the other way, too simple. How about try the Intuit service invoice? And again, let me show you that one. That one's a little better. We do have some boxes up here we don't need, but we have quantity, description of service, the rate, and the amount extended. Again, look at how they don't line those up. That would drive, and these, why didn't they line those up there? That would drive me crazy. All right, I can show you how to get rid of a couple of these boxes as a little preview without getting into it in too much detail. I'm gonna close my preview. What I'm gonna have you do is I want you to go up here. There are 4 tabs. It says main, formatting, send, ship, reports. Click on formatting. And this will be a preview if you want to play with it, but I'll do more with it in the module 6. Click on manage templates. You can't edit one of theirs. You can only copy it and create your own. So down on the bottom left, make sure you're on Intuit Service. Actually, let's go back to the professional. Do Intuit Professional. Because that would be easier, especially if you don't have to have a rate and a number of hours. You just want a description and how much is it, but you kind of need a due date box. So if we keep it simple, we'll go to the professional invoice, click on copy down on the bottom left. And when you do, it makes you a copy, and up here it says copy of Intuit professional invoice. Click right in front of the P of professional, backspace out where it says copy of Intuit, and put your first name in there instead. So it's going to say Connie's professional, and they ended up cutting off the word invoice because there wasn't enough room. Question is, where we changed it, is there now? There is. If you want to put in your first name, professional invoice, if it won't let you put all of it, just put as much as you can, because some of you have longer names than mine. And you've got a blue button. Is it okay? All right, go ahead and click OK, and I think it's going to take us to where we can do some customizing. I couldn't see it, so I hit enter, hoping it's going to take me where you go. Maybe, maybe not. Oh, no, it took me to help. Hold on. I'm going to start here. Tab. Oops. Yeah, I can't tell where I am. All right, sorry guys, I got to change my screen size because I can't see where I am. And I can't minimize there. You know what? I'm probably not going to change mine. I'll watch your screens. When you clicked OK there, did it take you? Oh, you got an error going on? Oh, that's not good. Yeah, so you ended up, sorry, I'm looking at Dee's screen. Down at the bottom of the screen it took you when you hit OK, it says additional customization. Go down and click where it says additional. Oh, did you find it, Brent?
No, I, something else.
Oh, yeah, it wasn't you. I saw the error. Hang on, everybody.
Oh,
To load,
okay.
and it won't, actually, no, it won't load your Connie Oct. It's going to want the password. Remember 1-password. And actually, Brent got bumped out with a QuickBooks error. I'm going to, oh, there it is. Did you just see when I hit escape, it came up? Hold on. Nope. It came up and then I hit something and it went away again. There we go. Okay, I got it. I hit escape. All right. I'll talk slow, Brent, for you to catch up.
No, I'm good,
So just go back to invoice and hit the back arrow and you'll be back on the one we're on. Yep, right there. And then that little blue back arrow you asked me about a minute ago. And you should be back on our invoice. Maybe it didn't save it. Try putting, is Janet Green there?
there.
What's your invoice number?
It says 1.
That didn't save it. It kept her, but it didn't save the invoice. So just go back. What did we do? 400? Sorry, everybody. When we talk about QuickBooks updates and whether you do those, it's those type of bugs that they fix. So what happened is his just bombed out and shut him out completely and said, oh, do you want to send a report to QuickBooks? No. But that's the kind of stuff when you have glitches like that, if it's a known problem that certain combinations of things we do cause that, and you send those reports to them, when we get updates, that's what they're fixing. And I would say if everything's working good, the updates are kind of not a big deal. But if you start to see those types of errors like Brent just had, that's a time to say, yeah, we probably ought to do an update. All right. So from there, Brent, in the blue, we went to the tab that says formatting. Up a little higher. There you go. And then did it save yours? Probably not. Do you have a copy? No. So we did the professional invoice. Click copy in the bottom left. And then change the name of it to Brent's. Got it? And then when you click OK, you should end up in the screen. As I said, we'll do more with this later. This one I actually is not the one I want. So what have you got down the bottom? Do you have a button that says, what are the next to blue, what does it say? I don't want layout. Is there an additional customization? That may be the one I'm looking for. Yeah, we're on basic customization. I want additional customization.
That's the bottom second.
And I'm not going to be able to get there unless I... Oh, I got to bring my screen smaller because I can't get there. I hate this part. I don't have this problem in any other program except for this one.
Yeah, mine at the top says additional customization.
All right, hang on. I'm having trouble with the button, so let me get to where I can see that part better. I apologize for this, but it's just a QuickBooks thing. I think I figured out that was a good one. All right. Yeah, so I left you here. We want additional customization, I think. Oh, hold on. I already copied this, right? Oh, I'm still in the Intuit one because I moved around. Sorry. Okay. Yes, click additional customization at the bottom. Are you there? This is where you can turn on and off different boxes. So all we have is a description and an amount. What you want to do is down with these here, there's what do you see on the screen? What does the customer see when it's printed or emailed? Find the due date. You have terms or you have due date. Terms actually are going to show up on our screen. Notice we see it on the screen. So how about on terms, just put a check mark on print. And it says they have to rearrange things. That's okay. And what you should see is the box up here. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this today, so I'm going to put up with the fact that I don't like the looks of that. But that's where I could go to my layout designer. I could start rearranging and resizing boxes. I'm just afraid if I get too far into that, we're going to lose time on other stuff. So for now, we'll put up with the ugly part. It's enough so you can see this and stop playing with it too. All right, just click OK. We'll pretend we don't know what it looks like when we print. And OK again. And now you should see you have the terms box and you have a place here to put in your item name that you see, description. Now we still see quantity and rate, but remember those aren't going to print anyway. All they're going to see is amount. So it's all stuff you can customize. All right, how about under item, click the drop down arrow. And let's say we're going to invoice Janet for some landscaping, so click on landscaping. She sees landscaping services. Quantity, how about 4 hours? Hit tab, says she owes $200. What if I decide at this point, oh, she really should see the quantity and the rate? I can still go up here and change my template. Hit the drop down in the blue area where it tells you the name of your template and switch it back to Intuit Service Invoice. They move the columns around a little bit, that's okay. And if I want to see what it's going to look like if I was to print, we're on the formatting tab up here. Click on the main tab, so up on above your icons. And then you have a print icon that's gold. If you were to click the top part, it's going to try and send it to the printer. If you click the bottom part and the little arrow, it's going to give you a choice of printing or previewing. Click on preview. And this is what they would see. Again, I would work on these ugly boxes, but I've got quantity, description, rate, amount. So everything you see can be customized when you have the time. We're going to assume good enough for now. Close that. I get invoices from people all the time, and I can tell they're using QuickBooks, and I can also tell that they don't know how to customize. I get them and I'm like, wow, yeah, we probably ought to tell them about my class. But, all right, so we invoiced her, save and close at the bottom. Speaking of that beep, do you notice I keep getting those beeps, but I'm not hearing it for the rest of you? My remote people might be hearing those beeps. Here in the classroom, I went into preferences and I said, stop beeping at us. Let me show you where that is, because you might find that annoying after a while. Go up to your menu bar, up where it says File, Edit, View, click on Edit, and go to your preferences. And I want to say it's on the General categories, so click on General.
Where are you again?
Edit on the gray menu bar, and then Preferences, way down the bottom. And then over here, click on General. And then you want to be on the My Preference. Somewhere in here, I was going to say, beep, beep when recording a transaction. That's why I keep getting startled by the beep over here.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, if you so every time you record something, it beeps at you. It's like, I don't think I need to hear the beep. So you can turn that off if you found that annoying. Some people like it because it's kind of that way of saying, yep, I got it. It's up to you. Go ahead and click OK. There, now my people won't have to keep hearing beeping. All right, so you came back and you said, oh yeah, I want that fish pond. But you said, can we trim the budget and only do 4 trees instead of 6? Well, if that's the case, and I say, yeah, that's fine, we'll just do 4 trees, we need to go fix the estimate and reduce that, otherwise it's never gonna show as completed. So let's do that. Let's go back to the estimate icon that's green. Single click on that. I wanna use the blue back arrow in the upper left and find your estimate. And then all you have to do is the second line for the ornamental trees, erase the 6 and make it a 4. And that just saved you an extra $100. Hit tab, it'll redo the amount to $13.96. Everything else you were like, yeah, that's great. We'll just do 4 trees. Go ahead and save and close. So we changed your estimate. It says, do you want to record that? Yes, I do. Would I like to add a change order? No. So just say do not add. Some people keep track of changes made and they have what they call change orders.
Excuse me, Connie, I am lost.
Okay,
When I open the estimate on mine and I put my name, mine is blank.
don't type your name in there because that means
No.
thinks you're creating a new estimate. So erase your name. And what you have to do is go find the one we already did. On this icon bar at the top, do you see where I'm moving? There's blue arrows. Click the arrow that points to the left, and that shows you the previous estimate we already created. Are you good now?
Okay, I found it.
And then change the ornamental trees to 4 instead of 6. And then save and close. It'll ask you if you want to save it or change it. Go ahead and say yes. So now we're ready. You said you like it, we agreed, and now we need 50% down. So go to create estimate, the next icon. So we're going to follow the map. This time, invoice, sorry. Go to create invoice. See what I said? This time of day, I get tired. You know, when I was 30, I didn't. But it's getting tougher. All right, create invoice. Let's get that right. And then I do want to create an invoice for you. So hit the drop down arrow, or you could start typing your last name, but choose the customer. And as soon as you do, it says, oh, wait a minute, you have an available estimate for this customer. Did you want to move some information from that estimate to the invoice? They'll show any outstanding estimates you have here. There could be a whole list. You have to click on the one you want. Even though it looks like it's selected, it's not. You have to click it. It should turn a darker green. Then you click OK, and there will be another question. It says, OK. Do you want to do an estimate for the whole thing 100%? Nope. Do you want to create an invoice based on a percentage that you provide? Or do you want to choose the items from the original estimate yourself? We want the second one, create an invoice for a percentage. And then in this box, you're just going to type 50. They know it's a percent, just type 50. You owed us, I believe it was $13.96. Click OK. And notice this invoice is going to be $6.98. And when we invoice you later, there'll be another one. Pretty easy. So not everybody has the need for estimates, but I still like people to see the whole process of how it works. Because it kind of shows you QuickBooks does so much for you. And I think people sometimes that have less knowledge do better with QuickBooks because they tend to follow the steps. People that have a lot of knowledge tend to try and go directly and cut corners, and they're the ones that have trouble. All right, save and close that. You were very anxious for us to start the job. So you just gave us a check. All right, so we're going to follow the map and follow the arrow, and we're going to go to the green one that says receive payment. Click on receive payment. And who's the customer we received it from? You can either do the drop down or start typing your last name. And as soon as you do, it shows you here any outstanding invoices that we have. So we received from you the $698. So put $698 in the payment amount box. As soon as you hit tab, you'll see it puts a check mark and matches it up down here. If you have multiple invoices for the same customer and they're not always the same amount, it'll pick out the right one and match up the amount. If you have multiple invoices for a customer and they're all the same amount, it would pick the oldest one first. I've had to be careful of that because the contracts I do with the state, a lot of times they're the same amount, but they might send me, I might get somebody I signed up last week, and the one I did 3 weeks ago, I still haven't got paid for. So you always want to look at the invoice number and make sure you're matching it up to the right one. If there was multiple and it wasn't the right one, I could deselect that check mark and choose the right one. Otherwise, you're going to go back and say, I never got paid for so-and-so, and they're going to say, yeah, we paid you that. Trust me, it gets a little confusing. All right, payment date. If it came in today, you can leave that. Is the date selected right now? Is everybody in the date field and it's selected in green? Okay, a little trick I'm going to show you. I want you to hit the minus a couple times on your keyboard. And then try the plus a couple times. And while you're doing that, I'm going to fix my screen size again, because I can't see. Try the plus, try the minus. Notice that it will change the date one day at a time. And when you want it, if you want to get back to today, you hit the letter T. So plus goes forward, minus goes backwards. The letter T takes you to today's date. So anywhere in QuickBooks that you have a date selected. So a lot of times I might be putting in, say I'm entering into my check register, what I spent with the debit card 2 days ago at Staples. It's going to automatically give me today's date, but I spent the money 2 days ago. As soon as I tab into that date field, I'll hit the minus, it'll take me back, and I get the right date in there. Anywhere in QuickBooks. It's not in today's book, but if you get the Module 6 book and you take that class, I have a list of all these shortcuts we're going to be doing kind of summarized in the back of that book. So they do come up in a later book. All right, so you make sure you've got the right amount, that it's checked off, and all you have to do is go to the bottom and say save and close.
What's going to happen if you select those payment methods?
Actually, I forgot to thank you, Brent, because I did get sidetracked. If you choose cash, basically nothing. If you choose check, this changes to check number. If you say credit card, it asks you, well, what was the card number? What was the expiration date? I, again, do not use credit card numbers. I always just say check, and then I put in here either the check number, or if it is a credit card, I might put MC5055, so that I have that reference, you have that reference, but I don't put the actual credit card numbers in there. E-check, if somebody pays me through electronic funds, I can do that. Again, what happens then, it just says, well, is there a reference number? So this is really for your benefit if you ever had to go back. Did I answer that?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about behind the scenes where that's going to post that to.
It's
Each
not,
one of those.
it would be if you had to go back and look up when somebody paid, like say for me, everything I do here is an increment of a $100 or a $200 fee. So I get a customer that signs up for a bunch of classes at $200. I will put their check number there so that it tells me what that class was. And if there's ever a question, I can go back and it will reference that check number when I look at their payment history.
But in the background, if it's cash versus credit card, is it posting it to another place? To see what I'm going to have
No.
is the Square payment come in? It's not doing
No.
anything like that.
Square doesn't interact with it. Do you guys use Square? Yeah, it doesn't interact with it. Nope. And I'll talk about receiving payments with Square. We will talk about that. So, but yeah, that's a little different.
So it just doesn't do it automatically.
No.
You're still going to go post.
Well, and to be honest with you, Brent just asked the question for those that didn't hear about if he uses Square, and so do I, to accept credit card payments from my customers. Let's say you sign up for a class and it was $200. I have to put in the income as the $200 because that's what you paid me, and I need to give you credit for that. And you paid me with check number 555.
Right.
I have to do that. What I then do, Square takes their fee out of every transaction.
Right.
What I do is I know the percentage, I know the per thing, and I just figure it out. And when I actually record this into my check register, I then go in and I put in the Square fees. And I'll do one like that so you can see. Because they take their fee right off the top. Now, years ago, I used to use a credit card company, and they took their fees once a month. So that worked better as far as QuickBooks, because basically I could say, you paid me $200, done. beginning of the month, first of the month, I just get a big chunk come out of my checking account for the total amount.
That's the way Slate's in place.
Yeah, and so some of them do it that way, which makes entries in QuickBooks easier. With Square, not so much, because it's taken out of every, so I typically would only run one credit card in a day. So I just wait for it to hit my bank account, and then I make sure that that fee is the right amount, and then I just enter it right into the register. But unfortunately, that's the way we do it with Square. But the other side of that is, Square is one of the cheapest ones out there. So, and if you, and Brent may run into this, if you swipe the card versus key it in,
Yeah.
the rate is different.
Yep.
For me, it's always keyed in because nobody ever comes in here to pay me. It's always keyed in, and I know it's 3.5% of the $200 and then add 15 cents. So I've already got it figured out. When I enter this, I enter the fee. I just,
Different.
yeah. But what I like is, it doesn't matter what kind of card it was either. It's always the same amount.
Yep, that's right.
So, okay. So for now, check number, I said 555, that works. And then you're going to save and close at the bottom. I can't get to it again, so I'm going to do it this way. The 2018 and later version has one little new feature that I like. The other users in Florida, they're seeing a number right here. They're seeing a red number letting them know something's waiting to go to the bank. Let me show you in the 2018. So when you get into the new one, you'll see the number right there? That says you've got a deposit sitting there waiting. This is, again, what they've added is so minor, but that, I like that one because that says, oh, you forgot to record it into the bank register. So they started doing that in the 2018 and later. So my Florida people are seeing that. All right, so.
I'm not sure that, I don't know if I put that until, but the check number 555, but
Yep,
I'm
and
already
then
off of
save.
another, I mean, I don't. know
Just
what
do save and close. Down the bottom.
happened, Cause it didn't,
Oh, you've already logged
Yeah.
it, so hit OK.
uh-huh.
What I would do then is clear it. See down the bottom is it clear?
Okay,
Because you tried to put it in again.
right,
Now save and close. And I think you're gonna find it's there. So what happened, Dee, was you had already recorded it,
right,
and so it already applied that payment to that invoice, and you didn't think it worked, so you went back to do it again. And when you put in your name the second time, it was already paid.
okay,
So there was no way to pay it again.
right, okay.
Okay, we need to take a break here pretty soon. It's getting late, but one more thing and then we'll break. Actually, no, this is a good spot for break because I'm going to be a minute. So let's take a 10-minute break, give you a chance to refresh, restrooms, drinks, whatever it takes to keep you going. See you all in 10. This is such a pain in the neck to go back and forth, but. My problem